part of it, they're getting a lot of language exposure, so it's language training. But another part of it, which I'll come back to in my talk, is it looks like a big chunk of it is handling, supervising GPT, so it's not going off track and doing its own thing and reining it back in. So it's that skill of how to work with ChatGPT. And I think that's an important point. I'll come back to that. That's a big part of my session.
There's actually another problem which I didn't go into, but that's exactly the problem I'm having, is keeping sort of ChatGPT under control.
Yeah, riding the horse. Yeah. Okay, then our next speaker, Dr. John Maloney from Taiwan University of Technology, about theater and ChatGPT.
That's it, yes. Hello. Good morning, everybody. All right, let's see. Okay. I like this. We don't have these in my university. We just have this. Okay. I'm going to be talking about sort of a very niche area of application. I specialize in drama. I've developed a curriculum of drama to teach English conversation at the university where I teach. That's what I was brought in to do. Sort of a 2-year program. I teach pretty much only conversation. I don't teach writing. I don't teach reading, because expressiveness is what I aim towards in the class. I don't aim towards, I tell a lot of my students, I'm not going to teach you anything new. Day one, you have enough. What I'm doing is help you use what you have better. So helping people to express more naturally, imaginatively, talking about creativity. Scott before really mentioned for me that's a hot topic in class. I don't want students to be trying to please me. I want them to be enjoying their language usage and having authentic expressions. So I found that ChatGPT, or in this case Bard, I use that as well, have been very useful in generating material, because I haven't used textbooks in more than 10 years. When you were talking about textbooks before, I think if you were here last in May, you saw I did a whole section on why I don't like textbooks, and then it's very, so I touch on it very lightly here. So this is the title, The Bard of Menlo Park. First of all, a little caveat. I had, for some reason, thought that this was going to be more of a student body audience. So if you feel like I'm talking down to you at all, or thank you. If you feel like I'm saying things you already know, and I do feel like everybody in the room has far more expertise and experience with AI tools than I do. So so if that feels that way, that's where it's coming from. Anyway, yeah, I was thinking about how I wanted to approach this, and how AI has sort of come into my teaching, and this came to me as a title before I knew why it was a title, and I had to kind of figure out. I knew I wanted to do this was the title, and going back to Shakespeare, Bard of Avon. This is if you're familiar with his name, this is before he had his AI upgrade. There we go. So this is him now, and so. There's a lot of anxiety today, and I have a particular friend who detests anything AI in the classroom or anything AI in the world, and we have lots of arguments about it. And one of the things I point out is, Shakespeare himself was sort of like his own version of a human ChatGPT. He assimilated texts and reproduced them. His first play, Comedy of Errors, was scene for scene, almost line for line recreation of a Roman drama, the Menlo twins. He added a character and changed a few things, but basically, if you put them together, he made it better. He improved it. The original's in Latin. It's hard not to improve on that. But he was that. Now he also coined terms. He created so many words. Some people argue up to 1,000. It's more likely in a couple hundred. A lot of his words are putting "un" before "happy" or something like that. But he did it like the word bedroom. Nobody had ever used the word bedroom before him. Midsummer Night's Dream. Living room, too. He likes rooms, I guess. So should I be acknowledging Shakespeare every time I use bedroom in a paper? so this is sort of some of the anxiety around ChatGPT is it's borrowing from a lot of these authors, like, they're taking my stuff. And well, Shakespeare did it, we don't complain. When technology does it, we complain. Actually, there was an interesting study done a couple of years ago. They put Shakespeare's work through a plagiary detection software and found like big long sections he'd stolen from other people. So he's not innocent. So that's the Bard section of my title. The Menlo Park is because obviously, if you've heard of Thomas Edison, his laboratory was in Menlo Park, New Jersey. And he also is a very famous thief of technology. And I shouldn't say that, that's not fair. He was somebody who used other people's ideas better and was better at promoting them. He basically, if you're familiar with his battles with Tesla, if you're familiar with the fact that the light bulb, everybody says he invented it, but he didn't. He patented it. Smart. So he was smart and took advantage of things around him. So Menlo Park. So I'm putting together this idea of literature and technology. Bard, Menlo Park. So of course, if you're familiar with Menlo Park, New Jersey, but there's actually 2 Menlo Parks in America, one on each coast. There's Menlo Park, New Jersey, and Menlo Park, California, just south of San Francisco, right smack dab in the heart of the middle of Silicon Valley. Menlo Park, New Jersey, it's the second one. So the Bard of Menlo Park is bringing together technology in an even more modern way. This is a typical house in Menlo Park, California. This actually happens to be a very specific house. If you see the windows on the garage, this is the garage where Sergey and Larry invented Google. So that Google was invented in a garage in Menlo Park, much like Edison had his lab. There's the California Menlo Park. Now Google moved out of Menlo Park, just nearby. That's Menlo Park. Now Google this was their Redwood City first, and now they basically own this whole area here. They are campuses, and Google is, but Menlo Park doesn't have Google in Menlo Park anymore because Facebook moved in. So now Facebook and Google both founded, their main campuses in Menlo Park, and now they've grown to become Alphabet and Meta. And I don't know, this is my own little thing for the future. Alphabet, I think that's what's happening. I don't think they'll join, but I mean, that's the idea. These things are merging. Now that we have Bard going into Google and Bing going into Microsoft, and Microsoft paying for half of OpenAI's budget, and you saw the whole thing a couple weeks ago with anyway, these things, they're all becoming meshed. And it's just interesting to note, this was more for the students who aren't familiar with American geography. This is San Francisco. OpenAI's here, Meta's here, Google's here, Apple's here. The drive from OpenAI to Apple, taking a quick pit stop at Meta, is an hour. Basically, if you live in the south of Taiwan, I would say from Tainan to Pingdong, you could visit all of those things. That's all of what we're talking about today is coming from here pretty much. So the Bard of Menlo Park is getting in that area. So anyway, we know what we're here to talk about. I focus on LLMs, of course. This is pretty much what I had in my presentation last time, except I had to update 3.5 from last time. You guys know more about these than I do. That's just what's out there. So there's a lot of different options, and now there's even more. They're becoming micro-oriented. That's why I think that this was actually even more important than it was in May. Calling them LLMs is good, but a lot of these are becoming very specialized. There's becoming like nursing LLMs. You're getting like, you could have a bartender LLM, but there's a more corpus models. And so that I think is a better term, but I don't think will ever be adopted. All right, let's get into the meat of it all. Scott's already talked about this a bit today, so I'll go through this a little fast. Students have a personal connection to advanced self-generated material. I like that they do it at their own level, peer learning's encouraged, you can scale it. And then of course topics. Books, again, they all have the same topics, the same 12 chapters rearranged, sports, shopping, whatever. I encourage my students to develop topics that they enjoy. Okay. So, let's see. So the methodology, I use 2 main methodologies in my class, improvisation and scripted. Improvisation is basically giving them prompts and having them them talk. There's no paper involved. I actually forbid them to write anything. Or sometimes I have them draw pictures and talk about them. But there's improvisation, which is very much like jazz. They're listening, responding, playing back and forth. And then the script is more classical because, you know, jazz is generative. Classical music is interpreted. It's already written, you have to interpret it. So that's the two styles I use. Today I'll be talking about the scripted and talking about student-generated texts. Enhanced. First, dialogue versus drama. They're not the same. If you ask students to generate a dialogue, 99% of the time they'll talk about how everything's good in this restaurant or how nice their trip was to Spain, like you're talking about, and everything's great. Nice. We had a good time. And that's, I kind of call it the disease of agreement. And it makes for a really bland conversation. And it's like, yeah, it's good, And there's not a lot of engagement. So dialogue's generally congenial, pleasant. Drama involves tension, conflict. There has to be a disagreement. So I encourage my students to look for disagreement. And I encourage them to make fights. I encourage them to use profanity. And I encourage them to do this in character. So I say, look, this is, for the Chinese here, though, I used to say, 那个对话的内容是假的，但是那个对话是真的. So inside the conversation what you're talking about is totally fake. But the conversation is real. And that's the heart of drama. You don't have to put yourself out there. So that's a whole different topic to talk about how that helps students express themselves. So dialogues and dramas are both good for developing fluency, but drama is better for expression. So let's apply some LLMs. There's prompts. Now this is what's important, and you guys probably know a lot more about this than me, but this is what I found useful. Round one, I always have the student write it first. I say, do not generate it on the computer. Don't use the ChatGPT to make it. Write it yourself with all of the flaws. I want them to see it. And then put it through this dialogue to correct spelling, grammar, punctuation, usage. And then, this is all one prompt. Formatted as a drama script. And this you don't have to include. But ChatGPT loves to put in all these things like, he said, wincing, or, you know, walking slowly across the floor. It likes to dramatize things. I don't think that helps. But, so I add this, so don't give me the stage directions except entrances and exits. So this is the first round. Do this, and it takes their script from this. This is a real script from last week in class. It's time to eat lunch. Which food do you guys want to eat? Now this is not bad writing. It's not bad. I'm so hungry I want to eat duck rice. How about you? Very typical. How about you? Is a good idea. Now again, we have a little, and this is how we wrote it. All the warts and pimples. See, I think it's really hard. I think that for me, I would like to eat ramen. These are useful, good, not bad. But when you put it through ChatGPT, it's time for lunch. What would you like to eat? It's a much more, you know, it's fixing it up a bit. Now this is still good, but it's also still, I would say, bland. It's okay, it's not bad. This is basically what you find in a textbook. This is very textbook level English. So then I do from round 1 to round 2. Edit, and now I call it a drama script because I already told it to format it as a drama script, into conversational vernacular, and then these two are the same. And this is what happens when you do that. And this has a flow to it. And it's using things like, duck rice sounds good, but I'm actually craving some beef noodles. These are more expressive ways of speaking. Sounds delish. Bring it down. You know, this to me is a really nice example of the progression from, I think it's really hard, that's going to be tough that might be a bit tough. And to me, this one really has a catchy, natural, vernacular flavor to it, which I think the students can latch onto. And so that's basically using those two prompts. Give a couple more examples. These are all from this week. This writing's not quite as good, so everyone, what season do you like? I like summer, I also like summer, but I think summer is very hot. Oh, I'm sorry, the green means it's already gone through the first round. I didn't want to, their writing is actually a little worse than that before. But now this is going in from Second, you're seeing this first prompt, second prompt, that's the final. And then there's the second half of that conversation. Again, here, let's see. And this gives, you know, winter's my jam. And that's what they can connect with. They hear that in the movies they're watching. They hear that in the songs they're listening to. So this is, their engagement with this text is much deeper. Now the next step from this is I have them memorize it. And we'll talk about that in a minute, about where that goes, what that's about. Okay, now you can also do things like add more dramatic tension. That can be a lot of fun, but dangerous. Add appropriate idioms. I mean, these are prompts you guys probably use all the time. Add figurative language. These are all good, but you have to be careful. And like I said, ChatGPT runs wild, and you end up with stuff like this. This is the same conversation, and this is what my students handed in to me when they went down the deep end. This is actually what they handed in.
They crave the succulents.
Yes. Now,
did a communist write this?
What's that?
Did a communist write this?
Yeah, exactly. Now, the thing is, they knew this was way over the top. They did, wow, teacher, think it's a kwajanga. They said, this is really too much. I said, yeah, it is. But they loved reading it. They actually had fun. And they were like, what is succulent? You know, and so, you know, so they learned a little from it, but not one we would use. Just going back here, sorry. This is how I have my students hand in their work. And the way they hand it in, we do it on Google Docs, so I can see it. And each group shares one with me, and they actually present this to me. And then we can talk about this. And sometimes they'll actually like the middle one more. Sometimes they'll like the last. So this is useful tool for me. We have computer rooms where they can actually type all this while I'm walking around group to group. Or they bring a laptop if we don't have computers. And this is what we talk up with. And we come up with a final version, and they memorize it. And they can either present it in class as a drama, or I actually sometimes assign them to film it as an extra tech level. And when I have them film it, I give them the caveat that they cannot film it in the class. I give them an hour of class time to go out and say, film this somewhere else. A big part of what I teach is you don't most of your conversations in life don't happen sitting down. They happen standing up, walking with your friends. So I have them do moving conversations, or go to a 7-Eleven and film this, and do that. So they could have this conversation in a park or something like that. We have a park area. So how's my time?
You're good. You're about 15 minutes.
Okay, great. Okay, so I got here. Okay, so let's try online. Show you how this is going to be really basic for you guys, but it's kind of fun to see with some. These are definitely authentic materials. Right. Let's go to God's Love and Sin. This is a script some of my students wrote. It's a famous story, Doa Changlua, if you know these. This is for a drama class. They wrote it like a script. Okay, and this is where the Jade Emperor has his daughter gives him soup and somebody poisons it and he thinks it's his daughter. I just want to show you what it does. Because this English was really pretty rough. But this is how they handed it in. And, hold on, it's down. So I just put that in there exactly how the students gave it to me. Let's go here. Let's get a prompt. Okay. Did I? Go. So maybe I should just for my father, what can I do? I'll make you an herb soup for him. Coming from it's not changing it? It's cleaning it up a bit. I have a nice daughter. And then the next step would be I want to put the script in. Oh, it is, I did. There. And again, you can see it's much more, okay, this is going to be tedious if I go through it. You know what I'm doing. So it's basically giving you how quick and easy it is to do that. And this is a very famous Chinese story. So the students actually connect to it a lot because this is something they learned in junior high. Something like that. Okay. Just a better example here. This one's got me over a barrel because this is basically a text. And here's Bard. And I'm going to give it just the simple instruction, edit the, I'll just give it spelling. This Bard, I've used this on like many computers, many Bards, and it always comes back, I can't do it. And I don't know why. And I put the exact same thing into ChatGPT. And it's like, comes right out. Yeah, it's great. Now, here's where I would say something like, edit the, more dramatic tension. There's not really much of an argument there. The temples are just so dull. Yeah. Yeah. You can also, if you have a specific goal in mind above here, adding one metaphor and one oxymoron. If you want to teach figurative language, usually when you say one, it gives you like 5. You know, been dying to try those rides. It's like dancing on the edge of danger. That's again, this is what I do. And once we get in a place where the students like the text, we memorize it. And that's where the real work comes in. ChatGPT generates these authentic, sounding, nice, natural dialogues. And let's go back to our PowerPoint. And how to apply it in class. What do you do with them once you have them? Well, I need to take the students from information to meaning. They're looking at information on a page. And they're saying, these are words I want to communicate to you. But information's not meaning. For example, it might rain tomorrow is information. The news gives that to you, and you can do something with that or not. But could you say this? Can you read that?
It might rain tomorrow.
Good. And how about you?
It might rain tomorrow.
You?
My rain tomorrow.
Something a little different.
It might rain tomorrow.
It might rain tomorrow.
Now these, you're all reading it pretty plain. Now I'd like you to say it like you have a big wedding plan tomorrow, outdoors in Hawaii.
It might rain tomorrow.
And you love playing in the rain.
It might rain tomorrow.
And you, whenever it rains, you have memories of a pet who died when you were 5 years old.
It might rain tomorrow.
Yeah. Now maybe I hate it. It might rain tomorrow. Or, it might rain tomorrow. What if I'm not sure? It might rain tomorrow? These are all negative. We're going to talk about pragmatics and stuff like that. I want the students to explore those levels of meaning, because that's not just information. And it goes, you know, the famous "I love you." You know, what if it's a question? I love you. I love you. I love you. Just changing the emphasis creates different meanings. So emphasis, intonation, desire, you play with this, and so what we do is we memorize the script and I have them play it through silly, stupid ways, any kind of way to open the language up so it's not one thing. And then that's, the post office is around the corner. The post office is around the corner. What's most important about that? The post office. The post office is around the corner. Now I've made corner more, just emphasis creates that, okay? Or the post office is around the corner. It has a different meaning from post office. It's around the corner. That pausing, there's a lot of things. So we play with these things. These are just simple phrases, but we do that with the whole script. So information plus intention, emphasis, emotion, etc. 5 minutes, okay? That's where you get your meaning. So that's why I love using the ChatGPT, because it gives me really good scripts that they started. When they had those 3 lines that they saw the progression from their writing to what they're saying. So they're still connected to their creation, but it's been filtered through this technology that made it more natural. And now we're playing with it in fluid ways. And in these fluid meanings, we get fluency. So when they realize that the language has multiple meanings, that a word like apple, just the word apple has multiple meanings, and that they're in control of that, they take a lot of agency, and so it's a lot of fun in class. They get really excited, and they start playing with each other. They actually, if you excuse the word, they fuck around with the language, with each other, and they have a lot of fun doing it. All right, so that's the rehearsed meaning. So we focus on a variety of meanings, and they get all these different skills through that, because they're playing with it. It's different every time, and they know it doesn't have to be the same. There's no wrong answer. So that's where this ChatGPT comes in, because it gives them a really good script that they wrote. In their mind, they wrote it. Even though they know it's been fixed, they did it. And so I find that once we've done that on one text, once we get that first one under our belt, the next text, they're really chewing them up, and eventually they can do it on other texts, and eventually even improvisationally, they start to naturally play with the language when they don't have a script. They get those skills, it gets in their body. It's a physical thing. And that's what I want to talk about. It's the psychophysical connection to language. And it's whole body, whole brain, multiple intelligence. That's why I say, don't have the students sit down in class when they're talking, because they're just using like from their head up. Get them walking around, get them doing something. Actually, sometimes I'll bring in like things for them to do, like they have to build this Lego thing while they're talking. And it actually makes a big difference when they have this task to do while they're talking, a physical task. That actually comes from an old acting exercise. If an actor couldn't connect to their words, you had to fold laundry while they said it. And it fixes the actor half the time. So doing it in language classes is very useful. So whole body, whole brain, multiple intelligences, and this is what you get out of it. These are the intelligences you're working with, because you're not just sitting and talking, you're moving, you're acting, you're doing things. It becomes very physical. Again, this is psychophysical connection. This is something I believe wholeheartedly, that experience is different from knowledge. For example, what temperature does water boil at? Huh? Very good. You know that, right? You know that.
200.
Now, how do you know that? Have you put your hand in boiling water?
I'm doing labs.
You've done labs, you've measured it, so you've actually done good, so you've had the experience of measuring it. 90% of society just goes, okay, 100 degrees. You put a thermometer in, that's great. Love, we can talk about love, it's a great thing to know about, but until you fall in love, you don't know what it is. It's the same thing, so experience, drama gives experience, so the language experience is different from thinking about the language, doing the language. So that's what we're trying to get at. This is from a paper by Joyce Wilkinson. She talks about how drama in language is essential for 21st century. And going off that 21st century, I'm sure most of you are aware of the 21st Century Project and 21st Century Skills. You know, the old RRR, reading, writing, arithmetic, is Industrial Revolution era thinking. And in the 21st century, There's a whole new concept of what we want. It's in Chinese too, if anybody wants to look. It's pretty easy to find on Wikipedia. But what they focus on 12 skills mostly. There's a lot of different interpretations of what it means. But I focus on these first 4 in my classes, and that's what they call learning and innovation. So they call those the 4 C's now of 21st century learning. And this is basically what I'm really working hard, struggling with my school to get to the focus more on 4C teaching. It's not I tell you, you repeat back to me, but it's critical thinking, creativity, problem solving, all these things here. And when you were talking before about creativity, the next graph is sort of how I see it, creativity emerging, and it comes out of these things. It's the intersection. So for me, when I look for where does creativity come from, it comes from the opportunity of delving collaboratively, communicating, critically thinking. Creativity comes out of that. If you tell someone to be creative, it's hard. But if you tell them to do those 3 things, you're usually going to find that something creative comes out of it. Okay, so that's my small niche area where I've been working in developing dialogues and drama and getting students to experience the language instead of think about it, but to actually live it and get it in their bodies. And it comes mostly from my theater background. All right, that's me. Sorry, I stopped using the mic, but I think you can still hear me.
Can we take like a 5-minute break between?
You want to take a restroom break? Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I gotta take a restroom break. It'll take me a minute to set up.
Okay, well, hold on just a second. Yeah, I just wanted to wrap up and summarize a little bit so that we can come back to it when we do the half-hour thing. So I'm thinking I took away 2 really interesting things from that. The first one, so I'm not teaching language, I'm teaching psychology. And I'm doing a similar hybrid project where they're using AI. And what it really caught me about what John was saying is that you start with the personal meaning, and at the end he elaborated on the physical, psychological connection. But if you really start with a strong, it almost seems to me the core of a good activity is you get even the low motivation students to put in there to develop that personal connection. Because I think that's where, in my failed experiments, that's where it goes awry, is the low motivation students are just going to cut and paste when they can. So if you can start, make sure that everybody has some kind of personal connection, and then when they see what AI can do, they're building their own potential by saying, oh, yeah, I can do it.
Gerald, thank you so much for that comment. That's a perfect segue.
All right, and it happens that Jason Slime is going to develop this one. And the second point I took away is that when I'm going to do my talk about job skills in the age of AI, and a lot of these job studies that are coming out, they're saying, look, AI is going to be doing a lot of this stuff, don't specialize in that, and what you're going to need are the human skills, the creativity, the collaboration, the communication, the critical thinking. And if you don't have those skills, then AI will eat your lunch. Right? So let's come back to those points. Those are excellent points. I hope we can come back to them. And we're going to take a restroom break, catch a quick drink break, 3-4 minutes. And
I like that.
So we'll come back in about 5, I guess.